Hi, thanks for opening up this email. We're going to send you a letter, and Iona got typing away about what she wanted to tell you, and she wrote a book, and we thought that's too much. So we thought we'd just sit down, chat for a couple minutes with you about what's been happening at Lifeteams.
This year at Lifeteams is going to be an extraordinary year for us. If you didn't open up the announcement that we sent out in June, we're running a very different year this year because we're running our year without the students that usually make up so much of what we do at Lifeteams. We'll tell you more about that in a minute. We'll tell you why we're doing it. But before we do that, I just wanted to give you a sense of maybe what our passion is for what we do. This summer at Lifeteams, we hired 2 students, and their job was to work with one of our YFC staff members in the downtown east side of Vancouver. One of their jobs was to involve themselves in the neighborhood there, and as young adults, look around them and try to help us discern what the best ways were to involve young adults with the needs around them, without exploiting those needs, but actually in a way that was helpful and that was mutually beneficial for those being helped and those doing the helping. So Carson and August stepped into this experience with just great excitement, but on Carson's part, he told me later there was also a lot of fear. In his past, whenever he had driven through the poor sections of the city, he'd roll up his windows and lock his doors. And then he'd look through the window at the people he saw out there with great sadness in his heart, because his heart was breaking for them, but he didn't know how to get out of the vehicle. He didn't know if he got out of the vehicle what he was supposed to do. But he knew that he didn't want to keep driving through the area with the windows up. This summer gave him the opportunities to not just unroll the window, but to get out of the car. And he became friends with people that had only seemed like a label before. People in his life who had just been the poor became Sam and Marge and Trevor. They became people who God used to change his life. When we heard from Carson about how impactful this was, and as we watched him this summer, our hearts just swelled because we thought that's what this is about. That's what we're called to do here at Lifeteams, is to give young adults an opportunity to take the passion that God's put in their heart, to take his heart that he has implanted into them, and to give them a way to get out of the car. There are a lot of young adults in the world whose hearts are broken for the needs of teenagers, especially young people who are on the fringes, young people who are on the margins, and young people who don't really have anybody who are stepping into their world, into their neighborhood. John chapter 1 talks about how God put on skin and stepped into the neighborhood. And we want our students to have the opportunity to do that too. We want to be able to give them an opportunity to get out of the car.
So over the past 11 years, Iona and I have been carrying a burden, and that burden has been, how do we get more people like Carson out of the car? How do we get them involved in the marginalized people's lives, and particularly those of youth? And the difficulty for us has been that we're so busy doing Lifeteams from September to May that we haven't had an opportunity to figure out how do we get more people like Carson out of the car and into the lives of our youth today. Of
our 9 graduates from Lifeteams last year, it's been really exciting to walk with them through the summer as God has continued to direct them to what he has for them next. Out of those 9 graduates, 5 of them have actually gone on staff with some sort of a youth program. The other 4 of them are volunteering significantly with teenagers in the community. We look at that and we say, that's exactly what we're looking for, but why not more? Why just 9? What about if every year there were 12 to 14? And what about if we went beyond that? What about if we weren't just training the young adults who came to us at Lifeteams? What if we were training people beyond that as well? What about if we found ways of involving young apprentices with veteran youth workers in significant ways? What about if this thing spread across the country? We want to keep doing what we're doing, but we want to do it more and we want to do it better. And God told us that this is a year to set aside, a year where we'll find rest for our souls, but also a year where we're going to be able to form a network of people who are working with young people who are on the margins. And then we're going to be able to match that network with young adults who say, I want to do something, but I don't know how. I want to get out of the car, but I don't know where to start.
last weekend I was at a conference in Vancouver and I was doing some recruiting and I was setting up our booth and this young lady came up to me and she says, "Rob, how are you?" And I'm looking at her like, well, I'm fine, but I'm confused at this point as to who you are. And she introduces herself to me and she goes, "You probably don't remember me, but back in high school, you were the youth worker that worked with me." And sure enough, 15 years ago, when I was a drug and alcohol counselor, I worked with Eva in the school. She's currently working with World Vision as a team manager. And she told me about her journey and how she got there. And, you know, it just did my heart well to see this young woman and what she's doing now. And as I came home and I told Iona, because that was the highlight of my day, I told Iona about this. And we started thinking about the kids that we had worked with when we were actively doing youth work and the kids that we had significant impact with. And we started doing some math and we realized that every year we would have a handful, maybe 15 kids that we significantly were able to impact. But each year we can graduate 10 or 12 students from Lifeteams that could all impact 10 or 15 kids themselves. And we did the math, and grab your own calculator, figure it out. It's more than a handful. It becomes thousands of kids over the course of the 10 years that we've been doing this. Lifeteams needs to be bigger than a 10-year program. It needs to be a 20-year program or 30-year program. And we need to be having graduates that are impacting 10 and 15 kids every year, which turns out to be thousands of kids throughout Canada.
When we started Lifeteams, we felt called to provide a place that was the joining point between these young graduates, these young leaders, these young influencers, and kids who maybe nobody else was stepping into their lives. And as we started looking around the country, we realized that this was a really unique calling because there was nobody else doing this in Canada, specifically matching young adults with troubled teens. 11 years later, there's still nobody really doing this in Canada, and we realized that that God has put us in a unique position. And with that comes responsibility. And so we want to do this well. We want to do this strongly, and we want to do it for many years to come. We want to do it better, and we want to do it stronger. And the time has come to step up to the plate, to take a larger bite, and to look beyond our small group every year and say, what else, Jesus? We're ready. It's time to step up to the plate, and it's going to be a good year. Next week, we're sending you a letter that's going to give you some more specifics about what this is looking like for us, and also what we're asking from you in partnership with people like yourselves. We can make a difference that is not just life-changing, but eternity-changing. We can join God in what He's doing and what He is excited about in the lives of young people who just don't know Jesus and just don't know that He knows their name. We can help young adults get out of the car.
Thanks for listening today. Thanks for taking these couple of minutes. Like I said, Iona's got a lot of words, but we have a lot of stories about what God's doing, and we'd love to share them on a more personal level. If we could do that, if that's possible in your life, give us a call. We'll have a cup of coffee, and we'll share some awesome stories about what God's doing with Lifeteams and in the kids in this country.